Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Blue Knight 7 with the Blue Knight Cast. Here today with episode 8, Painfully Waiting for Switch 2. And my whole point of this video or discussion today is to just talk about what's going on right now, what's not going on right now, and just what it seems like Nintendo has been thinking or was thinking, and how they're clearly, at this point to me, clearly trying to handle 2025 in general. And this is sort of a marketing discussion, or what I perceive of their marketing. Maybe a critique before it's over. So, and I'm going to probably stretch back a little bit in time here, but keep in mind, even at the time of the Switch being launched, the Switch 1, the tech in it was already a little dated. We had a 2017 launch of a tablet handheld that was using NVIDIA chips released in 2015. The Tegra chip it uses was a known quantity as the Switch was being announced and launched. And once it became clear that's what it was using, people were already kind of giving their assessments of what this Switch could do, because again, that Tegra chip was an off-the-shelf Tegra chip that was used in the NVIDIA Shield, and it was kind of a known quantity as to what it could do. And I think probably the biggest success story of the Switch is just how well the system has sold, even though it was underpowered against both the generation before it with Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Yes, I do consider Switch 1 to be part of the current console generation. If you don't like it, you don't like it. And it was definitely way underpowered over the current gen consoles. Yes, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series is current gen. They've been out almost 5 years now. But despite being so underpowered next to those consoles, how well it has actually done. Now, if for sales, I mean. Because it did release games that people wanted to play, and it had a lot of games. That's what's hurt PlayStation 5 and Xbox in general this generation. Just the fact that they've had trouble getting a regular release cadence on the first party tier. And yes, there have been third party games, but it's not at the volume Switch 1 enjoyed, or even PlayStation 4 enjoyed. I mean, it's just fact. I mean, we're this many years into the current gen, and we're probably just now really getting games that embrace PlayStation 5 and aren't really cross-gen with PlayStation 4. That's been the problem, I would argue. Those consoles came out too early, and Switch got a big head start, even if its tech is not what people think of as current gen with PlayStation 5, Xbox Series. And we're waiting for Switch 2 to release with something that's still going to be behind those, but it's going to start the 10th gen early, with tech probably rivaling PlayStation 4 Pro. And the reason I go into all that hardware talk is to say, even when it launched, you had people wanting a Switch Pro because they knew there was other NVIDIA chips, like it could be done. And it's understood that Nintendo had intentions of it, but COVID pandemic, supply chain issues that all tech companies had, it just didn't happen, and we had to settle for the Switch OLED. Okay. Which that was still a nice upgrade in a lot of different ways, but it wasn't for horsepower. That's what Switch 2 is. That's what everybody's excited for. People want a system that will not only play newer games, newer ports of newer games, but also just they want to know what next gen Breath of the Wild would look like a new Zelda game would look like. Things like that. People have been wanting more horsepower since the beginning, and now we're about to get it. That's why there's so much hype, I would argue. Now, what has Nintendo done? Really frustrate a lot of people. But going back, most people started really expecting a Switch 2 announcement instead of a Switch Pro. Probably end of 2023, because they felt like they were getting the last hurrah with the games that came out that year. And most people expected, I think, 2024 to be more of a transition year. And 2024 was not really a transition year. It was more of a, hey, we now got another round of Switch games to clear out year, is what I would say. Because when you look at 2024's lineup of games, I'm talking about Endless Ocean. I'm talking about Princess Peach Showtime. I'm talking about Emio the Smiling Man, Echoes of Wisdom, Mario and Luigi Brothership, Mario Party Jamboree. Not criticizing them as games. It's just they weren't the AAA flagship releases that you would think Nintendo would come up with at least one or two a year. And going into June of 2024, most people thought we were really going to hear something about Switch 2. And part of that was Nintendo's president Furukawa saying in May of 24, we will be announcing it in the next fiscal year, which would have been any time between May last year and March this year in 2025. So most people thought, well, he's already saying it, we're going to get it soon. And I think a lot of people went into the Nintendo Direct announced in June last year. The only real general Nintendo Direct, by the way. Everything else was like a lesser thing. But we went into that general Direct in June. I think a lot of people was expecting huge announcements for that. Switch to something. And what we got instead was like a full slate of games going into the end of the year. And nobody was expecting that. And it was a lot of those games I was talking about. Echoes of Wisdom, Mario Party Jamboree, Mario and Luigi. Nobody was expecting that. Emio came later as sort of a Twitter or X marketing campaign. We didn't even get Emio during that. And it was just sort of a big surprise. And of course they capped it off with finally a trailer from that where we see gameplay for Metroid Prime 4. That was the highlight of the Direct for me. And even then they just said 2025. And so this game that we knew would be like a Switch 1 game, or supposed to be, is in 2025. That was 2024 to me in a nutshell. Like, everybody thought there'd be a hardware transition, but it was like, no, not yet. No, not yet. Oh, and they also announced Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. I'll get to that more in a minute. So, you know, the last half of 2024 I would describe was everybody just frothing at the mouth, wanting to hear Switch 2 news and never really getting it. There was rumors of different Nintendo Directs, and some of it did come true. But they were all for something real particular, like an Indie World or a Direct to announce the new theme park expansion for Donkey Kong at Universal Studios, and we never really got anything else about Switch 2. Now, hardware leaks started to come in. Just different random things, and you had to wonder if they were real or not. And then we started getting these 3D printed mock ups, and we just got all these different random things with people asking, is this even real? But a lot of it made a lot of sense of what you saw, like it looked real. And it all pointed to a Switch 2, a true Switch 2, where they didn't reinvent the wheel, but it looks new features. But Nintendo would stay just silent. You'd think they would have responded a little more to the leaks than they did, but they were just silent. And we literally waited to the end of the year hoping they'd just say something, and they never did. They just never did. For me personally, when you're confused at what Nintendo is doing, you just look at what they are doing. With their marketing, it's usually pretty simple, and it may not be what you want them to say, but in a way, it's pretty simple. Like there isn't too much of a hidden game here. And leading up in October, I know there was a lot of rumors they announced something in October. And when you look at their X posts, different things, all they were doing was marketing the next game, literally. Marketing Echoes of Wisdom. Maybe a little bit for other games, but it was pretty obvious in October they wanted you to buy Echoes of Wisdom. They wanted you to buy Mario Party Jamboree. And then they wanted you to buy Mario and Luigi Brothership. And then they wanted you to buy Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. And in January in particular, I started watching again more. From October on, I kind of gave up. My answer to people was, look, they're just trying to sell these games. They just want to get a holiday season where they get as many sales out of these titles as they can. That's what we got. Take it for what it is. And then we get to January, I start watching closer again myself because Donkey Kong Country Returns HD was sort of their last game for now to have a release date. Metroid Prime, who knew? But Donkey Kong Country, that was it. And, you had all these different rumors coming out about there going to be like a teaser trailer this month, come probably this day. And it kept stretching. And as we went to the release date for DKC Returns, you just kept seeing tweet after tweet about that game. And the replies, believe me, some of them were just hilarious. But everybody was clearly not caring one bit about this port. It didn't review all that well, by the way. I mean, yes, and I played it, and yes, it's a solid game, but you can kind of tell it wasn't the best port job. Needed a little more polish. To me, it felt like it really was done on a budget, if you will. And I think they took Retro's engine and ported it to Unity, and to me it's kind of like, why didn't you just let Retro do it somehow? Give them some money to hire some people to do it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But leading up to it, that's kind of what the big deal was. And then finally, at the end of January, we got our announcement. And it was just a short teaser. where you kind of got to look at the outside of the console basically and kind of got a sense of what they changed or didn't change. Just how it got, basically took a Switch 1 and sculpted it. And it, basically, if you look at what they did and read between the lines, a lot of the leaks and rumors seem to be true. Yes, there's another USB-C on top. Yes, it has a different U-shaped kickstand. Yes, it still has a cartridge slot on top. Yes, it's a bigger screen. Yes, the Joy-Cons seem to slap into that thing with magnets. Yes, the Joy-Cons can be run across the table like a mouse. There's a lot of things that just seems to show the leaks were correct, to the point that no one really questions that the leaks were correct. And keep in mind, this was the end of January. They announced April 2nd we were going to have a Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. They were kind enough to throw in like 3-4 seconds of a Mario Kart game that apparently is going to be on Switch 2. And they were kind enough to say, yeah, it's back compatible. And that's literally about all they said about this thing. Along with, after April 2nd, they're going to have all these experiences in different cities to play it hands-on. But to try it out, and that's it. Now, part of what has made the wait between end of January and now so painful is a lot of people guessed or assumed there would be something announced in between. A lot of people were really expecting a February Nintendo Direct that may be focused on Switch 1 games, like sort of a last hurrah Direct for Switch 1. And I'm guessing it must have been the June one because we haven't seen one. There were rumors, PH Brazil, a known journalist, kept saying he had a source maybe a little shakier than the last one he had where he was right about some directs, but it just didn't happen. Other known leakers like Pioro, Nate the Hate just said they hadn't heard anything about that. And no, they hadn't heard anything about that. And apparently they were right. So we've went all through February without any serious news. We're in March now, not hearing anything else. So I'm going to say that June Direct was Switch 1's last hurrah. Not to say other Switch 1 games won't be announced. We understand that there's been a few that maybe have been waiting in the wings for a long time now that just never got announced. And I've talked about some of them here in previous episodes, but just to say it, if you can believe different leakers like Nate the Hate, Jeff Grubb, there has been a Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remaster that's been just kind of sitting, waiting to be released. There's Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess remasters versus sort of a report or remaster of what was done for Wii U. That's been waiting to be released. There is a Fire Emblem remake of the Genealogy of the Holy War entry, the Super NES Fire Emblem, that from Nate the Hate says has been done for a while. And Nate the Hate specifically has also said Kirby Planet Robobot, the 3DS game, is coming to Switch 1. Will be coming. So there's 6 games that's probably real from reputable sources that just we've never seen. And if we'd have had a Switch 1 Direct, I would have been saying, yeah, that's what we're getting. But we didn't get that. And that, I think, has been part of what's painful, because when you expect these things to be still existing, and you're pretty sure you're going to get to see these games at some point, you'd think you would have seen them before the Switch 2 Direct, because they're going to focus on Switch 2 that day, right? It's logical. I've kind of predicted this already, but I'll say it now. I think we're going to see some Switch 1 games mixed in to the Switch 2 lineup just because of back compatibility. I think that's really the answer. But we Nintendo Switch owners have experienced something that are experiencing something right now that I would say Nintendo gamers in the past felt very frequently and for longer periods, but it still hurts right now because we had it so good during the Switch era that we've got a little soft to this, I think. But we're just seeing a little bit of a game drought before that Direct. I think that's what's going on. And when I say game drought, I mean a smaller one than we're used to. I think we're going February, March, without knowing about anything in particular special, exciting being released. That would be my thing. And we've done a lot worse, especially in Wii U era, especially on the back end of the Wii era, GameCube, tail end of the Nintendo 64. There was always kind of a drought. It sucked. Got to get through it. And it's just kind of a good time to clear your backlog if you have any. That's what this is right now. And that'd be my best advice if you're just feeling some anxiety waiting for Switch 2. Surely you've got something in your Switch backlog. Play it. And why has Nintendo gone about it this way? Say as little as possible. There was talk that they were going to announce it earlier than they have and launch it earlier than they will. But they were not quite ready on their software, their games. As in, maybe the first party Mario game, the 3D Mario game, was not going on schedule. Something like that. There was also indications from Nintendo's president that they wanted to make sure they had enough stock at launch to fight scalping. All of that may have played into it being delayed, and I think we're waiting a little bit longer than was originally intended. I do think we probably, in another timeline, we probably would have heard something late 2024 and would have had the system earlier in 2025, like now, March. I think there could have been a timeline where we had the system March 2025 or April. But instead, it's all been kind of put down the road a couple of months. And that's kind of what we're feeling now. And as far as their marketing and their inability to talk about it, seems like, I think it really is, they knew about the April 2nd Direct for a while. And I think that they had this slate of games that they were determined to get marketed and just milk the sales out of them as they get to April 2nd. They know Switch 1 game sales may drop a bit after this. They wanted to make sure Echoes of Wisdom, Mario Party, etc. made their money. And keep in mind, these were games not even made internally by Nintendo. These were other companies making these games under Nintendo's license. So I think all that comes into play. They just wanted these games to succeed. Make a profit. So that's kind of where we're at. What have I been doing? I've actually been going through my backlog somewhat, but I've also just played through a few other games again just because it's been that long. Like I recently did a playthrough of Super Mario Odyssey, and man, you know, that's a game. And that is the graphics on that. To me, it's like I didn't need a Switch Pro for that one. It just looks so good. And certain, I won't spoil the game for anybody who hasn't played it. Those been about 8 years ago. There's certain sections, parts of that game where I'm just like, I don't care what hardware it is. This looks amazing. And I'm sure this next 3D Mario will find a way to blow my mind a little more. But the Switch gave us a huge library of games that defied what people expect out of hardware. My best advice is just enjoy them for now. If there's one you didn't get to finish for some reason, or one you wanted to try, just do that now. Now's a great time to do that. There's a lot of games like that. If you want recommendations, I mean, I just threw Mario Odyssey at you, but there's a lot of great indie games that deserve your time. And everything will probably carry over Switch 2, so you can just finish them, you know, as you play them. But if you want a great JRPG, play Chained Echoes. If you want a good strategy game, I mean, there's the Advance Wars 1 and 2 remake. It didn't get enough sales. Go find a copy, buy it. There's also the Tiny Metal games on the Switch eShop. They're good too and worth your time. Wargroove, worth your time. There's a ton of different racing games. Lots and lots of racing games on the eShop. Just find what you want and play it right now. That would be my advice, because we're going to hit the April 2nd. There's going to be a slew of games. Don't tell me there won't. There's going to be third-party games that you don't think about playing on Nintendo console. That's what excites me the most about the next gen. And enjoy what you have now, because we're already kind of fortunate. But let's still be excited about April 2nd. Even if it's took a little longer to get there than we wanted it to. And that concludes this episode of the Blue Knight Cast. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. And please take a moment to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to. And if you want to leave a comment, what have you been playing lately, just as you wait to hear more about Switch 2? Thank you all, and everybody have a good day.